Good evening and good evening and welcome once again to the Literary Hour. We're glad again you've decided to join us, and we hope that you can join in the discussion today of Liberia triumphing. Triumph is our title. So, Prof,
Yep.
we're going to see how Liberia has triumphed over the years.
I think that's the best thing because for the number of Saturdays we've been on Fridays that we've been discussing, we have been discussing challenges and several other things that maybe might have sounded a little depressing, but as people say, the Independence Day is smelling in the corner. So we have to move from things that sounded depressing to things that sound triumphant. And that's the reality about life. That is the reality about the human condition. We win some, we lose some. We win some, we lose some. We bend our heads down at a point, and then of course we raise our heads and look to the future. So the way we plan it, I think it's very significant. Started with the low, now we move on to the highs.
Yes, and as we've been talking, we've been telling you that this little piece of earth called Liberia, it has undergone a lot of triumphs, but it has also undergone a lot of tribulations and challenges. And we have been talking, as Prof said, we've been talking about the challenges to Liberia's independence, the making of the republic, and we say that even the fact that we are here is a triumph. So today we're going to look at some of the things that our country did over the years, have done to certify its place in society, in the community of nations. Now, it may or may not be a significant event in world affairs, but it is a significant event or events. So we're going to talk about it. Before we begin, as always, we're going to see what others have written about Liberia, and we have two little quotes that we're going to talk about. The first one is by Nnamdi Azikiwe, and he says, and I quote, "The position of the Republic of Liberia in world politics is in a critical position as one of the few independent sovereignties in Africa, and makes its status problematic. Why? From time immemorial, Liberia has been harassed by various powers and individuals to define its position in world affairs." And we saw that when we talk about the taking of the Galinas Islands by the British. We talk about the annexation of land to Guinea by the French. We talk about the League of Nations and how they punished Liberia for its role in the Fernando crisis. We also touched briefly on the E.J. Roy loan scandal that resulted in the death of E.J. Roy, but also in Liberia having a huge loan to repay. We talked about the Firestone loan land crisis, where they took a lot of land. We talked about how Marcus Garvey pleaded with the government not to give Firestone the land, but to instead give it to the freed blacks who he wanted to settle in Liberia. And we talk about how Du Bois and the others conspired to not make that a reality. So in the end, the people did not come to Liberia. The people that Marcus Garvey envisioned as a new Africa did not materialize. So all of those things, we've talked about it, and you might feel down. You might say, "Oh, this little land is cursed," but we're going to tell you things that this little land has done. So, Prof, we're on our way.
Yeah.
We want to read the next quote, which is a very, very good quote. I think it was from the American Embassy in Paris. The State Department sent it, and I quote, it says, the position of Liberia in Africa is peculiar and almost isolated. It is one of the few independent sovereignties of that vast continent, and is the only one on the whole Atlantic seaboard. It has exercised sovereign attributes for half a century, competently contracting treaties with foreign states and preserving a sphere of legitimate control peacefully among the interior tribes and along the coast, in virtue of formal treaties of cession dating back to its earliest history. At no time has Liberia trespassed on the domain of its neighbors or invaded their comparatively recent spheres of influence. Every paying due respect to the rights of other sovereignties, its attitude has entitled it to unquestioning respect for its own vested rights and to a special sympathy for its fruitful mission. So you see, Prof, Liberia was held in high respect, and they said that the word I like is a competently, right, negotiated treaties,
Yeah.
and it never encroached on its neighbors. No matter how recent those neighbors got their independence, Liberia was always respectful of their sovereignty. I like that. When I read that, I was very happy that Liberia was held in high. So that's a triumph for Liberia. Right, Prof?
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. I'm not a student of diplomacy, but what I've read about diplomacy is the fact that peaceful coexistence is very much important. If there is a country, if there is a nation that keeps butting heads with other nations and all that kind of thing, so that it becomes what French would call l'enfant terrible, a terrible, a very cantankerous person, a cantankerous child and what have you, then it is a problem. That is why when Liberia was in its heyday, we talk about the 60s, the 50s, and the 60s. Liberia had much respect. In fact, in La Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia was often seen as a child of America. They would call it small America, le petit américain, le petit américain. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Liberia conducted itself when it came to outside relationships. Liberia performed significantly well, going all the way, for instance, to the beginning of OAU. The foundational meetings and what have you, they also took place in Liberia. There is a famous photograph of Tubman, Nkrumah, and Sekou Touré sitting abreast at a table, and of course, symbolic of the initial discussions they held and what have you. That was in the late 50s.
I think 59 or something. Yeah.
The Saniquili Conference.
Yes.
And some of the foundational papers were done there. And when Patrice Lumumba had his challenging time in the Congo with Belgium and all those people out there, Liberia did send contingents of soldiers out there and participated in some of the meetings that will help kind of reduce the fire that was raging out there. Unfortunately, Patrice was caught in it all, and he died in the process. So we talk about the OAU as one of the moments of triumph. We talk about Liberia's own participation to bring to ameliorate situations in the Congo, and that's in the 60s. and one more, and then you might come in, and then we'll go on and on. And then, of course, we talk about Liberia's role of taking South Africa to the International Court of Justice. Of course, actually, that case was more of simply making a record because realistically, nothing much came out of it.
Yeah, but Prof,
But note was made. Yes, go ahead.
If you look at it, okay, so Liberia was a founding member of the League of Nations.
Yes.
I was proud to see that there weren't a lot of countries, right, that were listed. But Liberia was listed in the annex to the covenant. Liberia was one of, like a handful, right?
Yes.
Of nations who were signatories to the League of Nations. So before we come to the OU and all of that, so Liberia, being a signatory to the League of Nations, decided that South Africa was going against the mandate, right? Okay,
the mandate they had, yes.
Yeah, the mandate they had. So the mandate was that they said, according to in 1960, Liberia joined Ethiopia.
Yes.
To sue South Africa, right? And I mean that's a proud moment for me. I'm sorry, that's a proud moment for me, because their grievance was that South Africa has, and I'm quoting now, South Africa has practiced apartheid, right?
Yes.
It has distinguished as to race, color, national, or tribal origin in establishing the rights and duties of the inhabitants of the territory, that such practices is in violation of its obligation as stated in Article 2 of the mandate and Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations, and that the Union has the duty forthwith to cease the practice of apartheid in the territory, right? So Liberia and Ethiopia said, look, South Africa is going against the mandate, right? They are supposed to make the territory the well-being of everybody.
Yeah.
And they said no, right? So then, of course, South Africa countered by saying, and I quote, the government of Ethiopia and Liberia have no local standing, which is no legal standing, in these contentious proceedings, and that the Honorable Court has no jurisdiction to hear or adjudicate upon the questions and facts raised, right? So you're right when you say that Liberia and Ethiopia, they may have known that nothing was going to come of it, but it was the record, and what a good record, that our country stood with Ethiopia to sue South Africa to say what you're doing. And this is long before you had these protests and strikes around the world against apartheid, right? That was long before then. You had Liberia and South Africa taking South Africa, Liberia and Ethiopia taking South Africa to court.
Yes.
Right? So now they go to court. I think the case dragged on until 1966.
Yes. There are two key things. One was jurisdictional. The other one had to do with whether they had standing. This concept of having standing is a well-considered concept in law, that if it's like, which one hurting you now? You say, which one hurting you now? You are not part of it, and what have you? And they threw out that aspect which had to do with standing. In other words, the court agreed that Liberia and Ethiopia did not have that standing. Of course, as far as the court having jurisdiction to adjudicate that particular case, they said the court has standing, except that for this whole idea of not having standing, they say yes, those two countries did not have standing. But again, the idea that they made the case, I agree with you. The idea that they made the case so that it was spread on the record was very much important. And for that, of course, Liberia should be proud of it.
Yes, and if we look at the OEU, okay, even when they were in Saniquele, right, we had these different groups. We had a Casablanca group that wanted, it was very radical, headed by Nkrumah, right? Nkrumah said, we want total liberation.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah,
want any of this piecemeal thing.
yeah.
Yeah, and then there was the other group.
The Brazil and Moravia group said it should be a gradual type of thing.
Yes, conservative,
Yeah,
conservative. Little by little, and the other group said no. But also there were a lot of angst in there because I mean the OAU. You say what you want. I always say that the African Union is a toothless bulldog now, but the OAU was very strong, And if you're talking about triumphs, you can take pleasure in the fact that Liberia, not only the OAU, but Liberia also joined with Guinea and Ghana for ECOWAS. Remember, because when the French were giving independence to the colonies, they gave them the choice: stay with us in some semblance of dependency or total liberation, right? And of course, Guinea was the only country that chose total liberation, and Guinea suffered for that.
Yes.
But I would always say that because they suffered, they look inward and they build their country, whereas these other francophone countries, they are still dependent. But so then what happened was that ECOWAS and
Mano River Union.
Mano River. It was called a friendship convention in trade. To help the countries to go. So indeed, Liberia also in that was a signatory, and in fact, Liberia when they started, it became a signatory. Okay, I'm going ahead, but let's talk about the OAU a little bit, right? So the OAU, they started to pressure, right, the United Nations on South Africa.
Yeah.
They started to pressure United Nations to say, look, South Africa is practicing apartheid. You have to do something. And one of the first things they did was to say, you know what? We want our liberation fighters. We want those that are fighting for liberation against the superpower. We want them to be heard in the United Nations, right? And then, strangely enough, that was vetoed by the Security Council, right? It was vetoed by who? Britain, France, and the United States. The Security Council vetoed it. And then Portugal was using NATO weapons against its colonies because there were liberation wars. And so Portugal was using NATO weapons against Namibia and the other countries, and the OAU went again to say this has to stop. And again, not only the Security Council, we had Germany and Canada joining and said no. So this thing dragged on. But then you had the chairman of the OAU, not Talbot. I mean, at that time, it was, I think, Duda. He went to Europe to beg them, to say to them, please, you have to make Portugal, because Portugal was going against the treaty. So you have to make Portugal stop using NATO weapons, right? And again, they said no, right? So you see, so what I'm saying is that the nexus of the OAU was in Liberia, right? The Saniquele, the meetings and things like that, right? From the embryonic stage of the OAU, right, Prof?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yes. So you have this OAU, but this OAU is a strong OAU army team. The OAU pressured the United Nations. It pressured countries. It pressured countries until Japan reduced its trade with South Africa, right? Japan did reduce its trade with South Africa. So you have a strong OAU. Not only that, you had an OAU that despite failures, that keep putting pressure on the United Nations until finally the United Nations said, no, this is too much. And then they put pressure on South Africa because of apartheid in the, I think 1965 or something. And then the United Nations also said, we are going to find assistance and funding for the African refugees. And out of that, the OAU became a member of UNICEF, the countries now, UNICEF, WHO, FAO, UNESCO, yes.
what you see in there, especially talking about, of course, you're talking about in the early 1960s. In the
Yes.
early 1960s, that was when you had strong men, the likes of Nkrumah, strong men, the likes of Sekou Touré, even the very Felix Houphouët-Boigny.
Yes.
All those people, and their voices were so strong that even with the superpowers trying to exert pressures here and there, the reality was that these people, these African leaders, were irresistible. You could
Yes.
not. Therefore, they mounted uh, the pressure the way they knew how. It was after the coup that kind of took Nkrumah out of the political picture that actually uh, the voice of OAU began to diminish a little. Everyone has to be a little more cautious now in handling the causes that came out of Africa. When, for instance, Patrice Lumumba was eliminated, there was a powerful speech that Nkrumah made at the UN, and that speech was able to kind of shame a lot of the voices of the superpowers. Therefore, maybe they started kind of mellowing out, and that's how they began to respond a little more to the system of apartheid that was in South Africa. Of course, you know as well as I do that with all that, it was only towards the beginning and the middle part of the 1990s. That's when more pressure was being exerted on South Africa to kind of open up and respond to the demands of Mandela and his friends out there.
But Liberia also played a pivotal role because, I mean, the first thing is, I mean, can you imagine getting a triple veto? I mean, Security Council, it takes only one, you
Yeah.
know. So if one country rules against you, you're done. You know, so that's where they actually the world the power in the world is skewed because for these victors of World War II that are in the Security Council now, if they say no, it cannot proceed.
Yeah,
There's
that's
no there's no African country in the Security Council.
right.
So it means that if four country if the members of the Security Council say, oh, apartheid should end today, and one member of the Security Council says no, it will not happen.
Of course.
But in the case of apartheid, when the OAU was urging the United Nations to act, it was not one country prop, it was triple veto.
Yeah.
Britain, France, and America,
Yeah.
said no. So I'm just saying that with the OAU, can you imagine that although this was like a burden now because they knew they were going through insurmountable odds, they still lobbied. They went from country to country, and it was not only Japan, it was Turkey and a few Scandinavian countries that started to pull back from South Africa.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a triumph for Liberia
No, I
because
mean, like I said, it's there's no argument with that, Jackie. The thing about in those days, in the 60s and what have you, Liberia did play its role. Liberia did play its role,
yes,
and like I said, when you had people like Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, they were around. They also helped rally.
yes,
They also helped rally the troops to ensure. That is why I said at that time they were irresistible. All
yes,
right, they made their point, and of course, over time when these people who had strong voices too, when they started falling off, then of course it became a problem.
Yeah, and then so of course they didn't win. They didn't win with South Africa when they took South Africa to the court. But I still say that they
The record was
legislated
there,
the
yeah.
record. So in Liberia also was for some reason we keep coming back to this thing of the commonality of migration. You know, there were so many freedom fighters who found home in Liberia.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela.
Liberia became a beltway. Liberia became a beltway of the freedom fighters.
Yeah, Mashinini, Mary Makeba, they all came to Liberia. You know, Liberia. In fact, we were talking about Liberia in world politics. The book Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was the vice president of Nigeria, right? He lived in Liberia for a while. You know, so Liberia has always been this beacon. I think it has remained true to its origin of a home where people can be free, right? You know, it may stumble and fall, but people come to Liberia for freedom. And then during World War One, I think during the Paris conference. In the Paris conference, Liberia was mentioned in there also. So in the Paris conference, I'll quote, it says that the Paris conference says, and I quote, the recognition accorded Liberia at the world's great peace conference, which was convened at Paris in February 1919, must be a source of satisfaction and congratulations to every Liberian. It establishes for all time the status and relation of the republic towards the nations of the earth. So you see,
the thing, that's what you were reading.
Yes.
The language is sometimes very sweet.
Yes.
You know, after, in practical terms, the country is destroyed, all the high flowing language, just like they say, just to make your hay big, becomes the order of the day. But like we've been saying up to this point, really, Liberia, for all intents and purposes, given its own limited resources and all that kind of a thing, Liberia truly must be proud of itself for having had a voice. It may not have been a stupendous voice, but it was a voice that people here and there could listen to, and therefore such a voice became part of the, call it, accolades that it had been able to gather as a result of participating in world politics. So, yeah.
No, I think that especially for this time, you know, when people are doubting Liberia, people are saying, you know, oh, you know, Liberia was never this. It's good to know that Liberia had a place, you know, in the community of nations, in the community of African nations. It was respected,
yeah,
you know, as a beacon of hope and light, you know. So in fact, when they started with the OAU, Tubman was very instrumental, like we mentioned before, in bringing together that Casablanca, the Brazzaville, and the Monrovia group. Because if not, the OAU would have split.
Yeah.
Because you had, I think they even said Namibia shouldn't attend because of the white government.
Yeah,
but you had the Casablanca group with Kwame Nkrumah, who was total independent. You had the Brazzaville group, which was the Francophone countries, and then you had the Monrovia group, which was the conservative. You know, and we must give Tubman and the others their accolades in bringing these three groups together to form the OAU. You know, and I think that somebody wrote, a lot of people voiced their concern that Tubman was not, his statue was not at the AU. It was Nkrumah's statue at the AU, which is I think an injustice because Tubman and Talbot, I mean, they were instrumental. Talbot took it further, but Tubman was very instrumental in the formation of the OAU and should be represented with a statue.
Again, we talking about that, we bring in the importance of history.
Yes.
We bring in the importance of history. The idea that even though Liberia had been very strong at the start of OAU, but probably they were not the kind of actors that would have kept on the torch, carry on the torch, because people like J. Rudolph Grimes, people like Ernest Eastman, all these people, in fact, did a lot of the drafting of a number of the documents and what have you. But the idea is how many people kept on? How many people kept on beating the drum and what have you when someone like Tubman, who was at the center of it all, when he passed and a few other people passed, who from the Liberian end kept on pursuing the role that Liberia kept on playing within the continental politics as we know about them. Even talking about being the asylum hub of Africa.
Yes.
When there were crises, even in Nigeria, the Biafran War, 1967 and all that. Talk about also a war in Sudan. The conflict, all these things in Sudan, they didn't just start. They didn't just start. There are many students who went to school with some of us and even a generation before us. So all these things, and even some of them ended up working at the Ministry of Finance and a few other places. So in other words, Liberia, even at high and low point, Liberia was there. And it had to be somebody or a group mounting the pressure to make sure that the legacy of Liberia in terms of both world and continental politics did not die out. So we have to make sure that, especially these things we are doing here, we have to make sure that there can be, studies and text growing out of the narratives we have as far as what Liberia has done within the context of African politics and world politics.
In fact, reading some of the documents from the OAU, they were saying that one of the presidents, I think it was Nyerere, he was angry at, I think Nyerere was angry at Jaffa Numeri.
Mm-hmm.
From Sudan. So Jaffa Numeri, because of the war, the Sudanese refugees were flooding.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was very angry. So Tubman and the others had to bring them together to discuss because he was very angry at the fact that his country was being flooded with refugees. So yes, so I feel like this is one aspect, which is a very important aspect, Liberia's role in the OAU and Liberia's role in the liberation struggles in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But Liberia also played a very important role in the economic struggle of Southern Africa. And we will talk about that as soon as we look at the comments. If we have any comments, maybe we can have one or two. To yeah, Patience. Happy 26 to you. Happy 26 to you. Yes. You
Mo,
about is
Miller.
watching. Yes. Yes. Emmanuel TS is 174 years old. Country no development. Everyone is greedy for power. There will come a time, Emmanuel. Happy 26, Mina Dio. Okay, Emmanuel Jackson. Frank said, happy 26 to all my compatriots. Yes. Happy Independence Day to our motherland. May God Almighty bless our soul root. Emmanuel says that. Yeah. Edward Amara said, don't you think that if Liberia had the economic and military power by then, it would have taken advantage of its weak neighbors and encroached on their territories? Well, this
That's
is
right.
what,
They have all that.
yeah, that's what we talk about when we say critical junctures, it didn't have that, so it didn't happen. So we don't know, Emmanuel. Haile Selassie was one of Africa's great emperor. Isaac Kofa, yes, he was. Yes. Will always be Liberia is coming up back, says Jala Kamara Jr. Yes. Augustine Sherry said Liberia was a beacon of hope and a proof that Africans were capable of governing itself. However, she stood still while other African countries were moving ahead. Despite her pitfall, Liberia still has the opportunity to be a great nation in Africa. Yes, I agree. And Jala says, thank you. Yes. And Christine say, hi, Doc. So, Prof, your student.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay, so we talk about the economics, and you know that when Talbot was hosting the OAU, this is not about helping, but he spent 25 million, and the people were saying, "This poor country, why you gotta be building this hotel and doing all of this with 25 million?" And he felt that it was important. But anyway, that's just an aside. That $25 million was spent on the OAU meeting in Liberia on the Talbot. But one other overlooked past glory, nothing to point at nowadays, Amadou Bless. I disagree, Amadou. I think that if you look at where you've been, it gives you the impetus to move ahead. So yes, Liberia has past glory. I mean, a lot of countries when they want to urge their people to action, they say, look where we've been. We were a great nation once, we can be again. So I think that you do a disservice when you say that past glory is nothing to look at. But Prof, I was going to talk about the Southern Africa in special regard to Zambia, because as you know, Zambia is like, I always talk about Zambia, but there's something very important about the economics and how Liberia in the OAU was instrumental in that. If you remember, when the freedom fighters, when they were fighting South Africa, right, they would flee to Zimbabwe or to Zambia.
Yeah, the neighboring countries.
Yes, the frontline states, right?
The front line stage. That's
The
right.
frontline
Yeah.
states. But Zambia was bombed by South Africa. South Africa continuously bombed Zambia because of that. So Zambia suffered a lot. So now Zambia, as we all know, is the one of the world's largest producer of copper. So Zambia used to use South African ports, right? Because Zambia is a landlocked country. Yeah. So they used to use South African ports to be able to send their copper
out of the country.
And so South Africa locked its port. South Africa said you will drown in your copper. There's no other way. And the only other way that Zambia could send its copper was through Tanzania, which was very circuitous. So Tanzania and Zambia got together and went to the World Bank and asked for a loan to build a railway that would take the copper from Zambia to Tanzania ports.
Yeah.
And the documents say the United States vetoed it because the United States was one of the greatest shareholders in the World Bank. So because the United States, if you remember, what they wanted was persuasion. That was the policy, to persuade the whites in South Africa to give up, to stop being mean, to stop doing apartheid. So their policy was persuasion. So because the freedom fighters were fighting with weapons and things, the United States and others, they told the World Bank not to give Zambia and Tanzania the loan, right? So this is what we call the very first Chinese project. So China said, oh, we can build the railway. And people laughed at them because China wasn't a superpower then. How would they build a railway? You know, and China brought, I think, 2,000 Chinese, and they built Tazara Railway, which is called the Friendship Railway. And that is why when the Olympics in China started, the Olympic fling started on the Tazara Railway, because that was the first time China had done a project in Southern Africa. So China built that railway, and Zambia was able to move its copper, right? So the thing is that China and Cuba, they became great helpers to the liberation struggle.
In fact, they were not only instrumental in the project you are talking about. They were also very, very instrumental in Ghana and a few other places that were specific in terms of moving forward with Africa's effort to make its own voice, not only that, but to exert its own effort towards self-improvement and self-development. So that at some point, in fact, over time, that led to what in fact became the non-alignment and all those things, movement and what have you, because when the so-called superpowers were not responsive to the urgent needs of Africa, Africa had to look to other places, look to even India. And in that process, they decided, well, if the superpowers cannot help us, there are other powers that have resources and what have you. If not material resources, they had human resources to be able to help in the process of lifting Ghana, lifting Zambia, and lifting Tanzania and a few other places there. So that particular struggle, that particular tension to ensure that Africa was not bent to the point of even going to the ground will not materialize so easily.
If you remember, even at the United Nations, President Tobert, his famous speech about non-aligned movement, he even talked about the apartheid system, as he calls it, in the Palestinian occupied territories.
Yes.
You know, he stood up.
That's why he talked about the two states. Early at that time, Tobert spoke about the need for the existence, the establishing of two states. That is of interest today. But all the way out there, Tobert was one of those who made that passionate plea for a two-state system in the Palestinian area there.
But the thing is, so then we are supposed to be so happy, because this Tobert went against the established norm. You know, to stand up, and not only to stand up, but to stand up for a marginalized group.
Yes.
You know, if you, and his speech is on YouTube, so you can read his speech, and it's very powerful. When he talked about, and then he went even further. He severed his ties with Israel. Yes.
In fact, you know, when you think about causes leading to the coup in Liberia, there are others who believe that speech that Tobert made out there became part and parcel of what happened. Of course, you know very well that one of the let's put it in quotation, one of the sins that Tobert committed was the need to a kind of revisit Firestone, the Firestone contract and all those things there, and people thought that he was going too far and what have you. But what the heck, you know, what the heck? These things had to be revisited to ensure that Liberia got its own share from whatever benefits Firestone and all those places were extracting from the country. Unfortunately, because of his own business interests and what have you. Others kind of turned the whole thing around and thought that he was doing that to amass wealth for himself. I'm talking about trouble. He was doing that to amass wealth for himself. Therefore, he deserved he deserved to be overthrown and what have you. Which is not what people who know the history now and know the story would really accept as being the final statement about how Talbot was overthrown.
But if you look at it, his speech at the United Nations gave added enormity to the situation because Talbot at that time was head of the OAU. Yeah, he was the president of the OAU, And so as president of the OAU and as president of Liberia, standing there to talk about the fact that apartheid is being practiced against the Palestinians, there should be two nation states, things like that. I mean, there was the I guess also the fear that his voice held sway with the other African countries. I mean, if you want to know the importance of the African Union, Netanyahu wanted wanted to join the AU. Remember, Israel wanted to be a member of the AU, and we're like, is it African Union? But what I'm saying is that it is true that I feel that the African Union now has lost its vigor. But in those days, it was a force to be reckoned with because just look at it. Even when the Security Council was against the OAU or against Africa, OAU members still lobby and got results, right? They still lobby and got Turkey, a few Scandinavian countries, and Japan to withdraw from doing business with South Africa. So if these countries could do that, if this organization could do that, even with the Security Council triple veto, imagine what they would do to Israel or to other places who are doing business with Israel. So I think that for our president to stand up at the United Nations and say something that was definitely out of favor with 90% of the people in the United Nations, that is something also to be proud of. So that I think we can lift Talbot up, and for that, So Liberia has been at the forefront. Liberia's role in World War II. Let's talk about that, right? Because I don't think Liberia has been more powerful than in World War II with the rubber.
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, the thing about it is that Liberia still stood tall in there, and its own point of focus came when it aligned with America.
The allies,
allied with the allies, and then
to the detriment.
denounced what is the wage war on Germany as well, until one afternoon it is said that a German gunboat came around Liberia.
But is that true? That's true, right?
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Came around and it shook the hell out of Monrovia, for that matter. But again, whatever little part Liberia was expected to play, especially aligning with America, that's why every now and then the Liberia-American relationship, sometimes people think that Liberia did not get anything significant out of, but again, it's like saying Liberia had to keep on. There was a workshop that Blamo Nelson and a few others set up. The theme of that workshop was living together, even though that There was a workshop that representatives from warring factions had to be part of. It was all about still trying to find ways of reducing tension in Liberia and bringing the parties together. So the theme of that was living together even though they're eight. So that is the case of Liberia and America and a few others. Liberia has been shortchanged in a number of instances, but Liberia continued to stand up and do whatever it would. There are others. I think we saw the comments saying that with all the past glory, what has Liberia been able to get out of it? But the question is, I keep saying, let's do this, or something must be done. Something. Who must do this thing, my people? Who must do this thing? All the young people, and of course people in the generation of some of us in this world, especially in the Liberia context. Who must do these things? How can we get together? What proposals are being put on the floor or on the table? It is now time for thinkers to rise up and see what can be done, putting integrity and a few other things together. Can you get two or three Liberians to say, let's work together, let's pull resources together? How many people will say yes and go beyond the yes? There's so much of muff talk, as we say in Liberia. There's too much of muff talk. We want to blame 240 people, but we cannot blame ourselves. You see, sometimes it is pulling the ideas together that might lead to the point of pulling materials together. Ideas will come and then materials will follow. But at the heart of it has to be integrity. At the heart of it has to be integrity. Some you put 2 or 3 people together. By the time you know, they are fighting over money. By the time you know, they are fighting over this and what have you, and nothing comes in the process. So one of the things that's lacking, as I see in our place there, is this matter of integrity, this matter of hard work, this matter of honesty. Do we have all those things working together? Of course not.
So, Prof, so for World War II, they said that Liberia had the rubber was akin to what is now the oil, right?
Yeah.
So because the Southeast Asian states, the Southeast Asian countries, some of them had rubber, but Japan was there, so they could get rubber. So Liberia was the only place where the Allies could get rubber.
You're talking about World War II now.
World War II.
Because around 1920, that's when Firestone got in and what have you.
No, I'm talking about World War II, yeah, in the 1940s, yeah.
Okay, okay.
So the thing is, you have, strategically, Firestone was here, right? So you have a president flying in, an American president flying in. I don't know if he even slept in Liberia, but he flew in. And then you come to Liberia saying, oh, our traditional ally. Yeah. Now, don't forget that Germany was Liberia's largest trading partner.
Yes, that's true.
Germany had built the German hospital up by Ducal Hotel.
Yes.
Germany had worked with Liberians.
Yeah.
Germany had done a lot for Liberia. And you have this country weighing, saying this is our largest trading partner. This country has done a lot for us. And then this is our traditional ally, who really hasn't done a lot, but a traditional ally. So for Liberia to look at these things and then side with the United States and the allies against its trading partner, its largest trading partner, right? And for the partner, I don't know if to come to the port and demand. So that's the story I heard. That they demanded that they hand over all the allies who were living in Liberia at the time. And we have this small country, this tiny piece of earth, saying to this major power, Germany, no, we will not hand these people over. And so what did we get in return? The bombing of our port, right?
Yes.
Now you now everything, the war has ended, and the allies, they are victorious. What do they get? Security Council.
Mm-hmm.
They are on the Security Council.
Yeah.
They rule the world. They can veto anything.
Yeah.
And not only that, they created a Marshall Plan for Europe. Billions of dollars to
Yeah.
rebuild Europe. What did Liberia get?
Mm-hmm. A non-entity.
Because I think that we got some money, but it was a loan.
Yeah.
So we didn't get anything,
Mm.
for all of the work that we've done. But again, we come to the fact that we are to lift our country up. And throughout all of these instances, we've seen that Liberia has taken a high road. If you look at that quote at the beginning, if you remember the quote, it says, Liberia has gained its respect among the community of nations. Liberia has not looked for its own gain. It has, even at the detriment of itself, it has gone out to go against the grain and help other countries to get liberated, help other countries to become economically viable, help other countries to welcome other people from other places when they had nowhere to go. So there's a lot that we can be proud of our country. That it's true that Liberia was shortchanged in World War II. In World War One, they got a little plaque that says,
Mm.
but the thing is that I don't think they went into it for gain.
Yeah, but
They,
yeah, but of course, America helped a little in establishing Rabat International Airport, and then even the free port. But the extent to which uh, help would have come to Liberia, that's what we are talking about. I just wanted to make that point. The extent to which if it were another place, if it were maybe some other superpower, what have you, Liberia would have gotten substantial help. That's the thing that didn't occur in our situation. That's the point probably people need to keep in mind as well.
but Roberts Field also was a place for them too, because their military aircraft would
Yes,
land.
I know.
So it's
No,
not
that's probably what they might also have to come. Well, you said we didn't do this, but of course we are saying the sacrifices that Liberia made, uh, they did not get a good return. That's the point that is being made. Uh, you know, this much of a token, the tokenism, that is what we are commenting on when we say that after World War II, the Marshall Plan and all that, even it was said that some projects were being set up in Point 4 area there, that which led to the name Point 4. I'm talking about the Nukutan area and what have you. But it was more of a token. And the Liberia that stood with you throughout should not have gotten mere tokens.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think that, yeah, our country has been shortchanged, but our country is still one to be proud of. Our country
No
has
doubt.
borne the brunt of many
Mhm.
injustices,
Yes.
but we are still proud of our country.
Yes.
Do we have any more comments that we can look before we start to talk about Sunday? Joseph Weah said multi-party democracy is well on the way in Liberia, but the very thing that runs democracy is in the hands of foreigners. Okay,
For
Joseph Weah,
example, now
the
I
economy, I
forget
think he's saying,
the economy.
yeah.
I hope is that what the China.
China knows very well how African nations helped them in the time China was in need. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, you
China
got
has the right to help African nations in the time we need to. Goes around, comes around, help to help. So
yes.
Jala,
Well, I understand with Samaritan, but I just hope that we in embracing China's help and all that. I just hope that we are not letting our guard down. I hope that as they are bringing in help and what have you, we know what we are doing. That's one of my fears. For me, I don't have a problem with anybody who should help, but we who call ourselves people of the land, we have to be very careful so that in giving us just a little, we don't open wide our arms, so that while we are looking at the little they gave, some of them are not doing devastating things behind us. That's all I fear.
Christy Lardner said, I think President Tolbert was the only president who had Liberia at heart, but
Amen.
was not given a chance.
Amen.
So Prof, if I could,
Wait, that's you to say that Tobo was the only president who had Liberia at heart. Maybe he was one of them, Christian. Maybe he was one of them, but we cannot just give him that blanket accolade like that. Some of us came through Tobo's years and what have you. We appreciated some of the things he did, but yet probably because he was not alone, because he had other people who were pulling him here and there. So it wasn't just one group that didn't appreciate him, even in his own circle. So if there's anything, it's just that at some point in time, some historical figures suffer a lot because of probably some ills in the past and what have you. So it's sad that he went that way, but we have to, if we are dealing with that, we have to put the whole thing in context. We have to put it all in context. He did, don't get me wrong, he did what he could, but to say that he was the only one, that's a thing, I don't know. Again, that's your your perspective. So I must appreciate and respect that.
So, Prof, who is the other president that has the country at heart that you know of?
What do you mean?
I mean, past president besides.
Okay, we have to ask the question first. What is meant by having the country at heart?
Okay.
We must be able to define that. If we define that, then we know very well that Tobo, it was not Tobo alone. It was even going back all the way to Garrison W. Gibson. Garrison W. Gibson. He was one of those who initially respected the status of indigenous people. So if we take it from there, then we have to begin to define what it means to say that this president was the only person who had the country at heart.
Yeah, Garrison Gibson. Yeah, he was one of the presidents who was from Maryland. He and Daniel.
I don't know about Maryland. I think.
No, Maryland in America.
Yeah. Okay.
Liberia is one of the greatest nations in Africa. We should set the example, says Darius L. Yeah, I agree with you. Darius says Joseph Jiggy Robert was the first president of any African nation. Arthur Barclay and Daniel E. Howard, who supported Gavi's Back to Africa movement. Yep, we discussed Back to Africa movement some time ago. Yeah. Ebenezer Addy said only Liberians can develop Liberia economically. Liberia have not developed economically because our people have not focused on education and health and social welfare. The first and second lines of economic development. Talbot and Joseph Jenkins Roberts were the best presidents of Liberia. Thank you, Ebenezer. Ebenezer answer his question.
My people, that's your best thing and other kind of thing. Sometimes you're throwing out the superlatives and other kind of thing can become a problem, really. They did their best, but to say they were the best presidents and what have you.
To him, they were the best, yes. But Prof, one of the things that coming back to the OAU, Faliku Kone said, will Liberia ever rise from the ashes of the devastating 14-year war? If so, when will that ever happen? I think, Faliku, it would happen when we continue to do what we're doing, to lift Liberia up, to work for a better Liberia, and to always, try and help our country in any way we can. But Prof, I was reading some of the OAU papers, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, some of the frontline states, they were getting some money from the OAU, to help them in their liberation struggles. Yeah. But then after a while, the African Union, the OAU, they could not send money to these frontline states or to the liberation armies because they ran out of money, because the countries were not paying their dues. You see, so so when you talk about it, a lot of the comments were about economic development, you know. So that's some of the things. And I always say that, I mean, I know this is not a debate about, we're talking about lifting up Liberia. But a lot of people always say China, China. And I'm not pro-China. But what I'm saying is I think because China is so visible, right? That's the one we see. So we say, oh, China is going to take over Africa. But look at the African Development Bank. The largest shareholder, the largest foreign shareholder in the African Development Bank is England, followed by the United States, followed by Japan. So talk about that one. Talk about the people who have the power behind. Maybe you don't see it, and so you think China, China. But what I would like to say is that China owns the Hilton, I think the Hilton Hotel or the Continental Hotel. China owns so much in the United States, right? It is how you manage it so that you don't let them feel like, okay, so China owns a lot in America, right? Companies that I think General Motors is owned by China. You know, the Chicago Stock Exchange, the AMC, Smithfield Homes, Smithfield Foods, you know, but nobody talks about that. The Chicago Stock Exchange, you know, is owned by China, right? Legendary GE Appliances, the Waldorf Astoria. These are Americans, you know, icons that are owned by China. Nobody talks about it. But they're like, China will take over Africa. But China has so much investment in the United States that is saying that China is bad. The United States, China has investment. I mean, to own General Motors, to own the Waldorf Astoria, to own the Chicago Stock Exchange, you know. So what I'm saying is that if you put your economy in order, you will not have to worry if China is there because your institutions will be strong. When your institutions are weak, then you find a scapegoat, because who gives China, I mean, who gives foreigners visas to come to their country? It's the government, you know. So you cannot blame everything on a foreign government. The country has to put its people first. So, Prof, do you have closing comments, or do we have any more comments before we start to talk about Sunday? We don't have any more comments, right? For our time. Oh yeah, Christine Lardner is answering you. For our time, Toba was the best president.
I'm saying, again, that's a perspective you brought to the table. That is fine. All I'm saying, and again, that doesn't take anything from you, Christine. I'm sure the idea that you made a point that is worthwhile. All I'm saying is that if we are saying that one fine day we will have a forum where we talk about the presidents that meant well for Liberia. Even William Coleman, who resigned over the fuss about whether the settlers should integrate with the indigenous people, and when they refused that, even though Coleman has served 2 terms, he decided to resign. So these people are there. Yes, for our time, Turbo time, yes, we can talk about that. But when you put the word only there, Christine, that's what I was talking about. That he was the only person who was best for the country. No, he was one of the good ones. I think of the 25 or 18, no, 19, 20 presidents or 21 presidents. Of them, we can talk about 5 or 6 who were very good for the country because of what they thought about bringing people together and what they thought about making a forward movement as far as the country was concerned. We will just look at that. But when you talk about just one and only one, then it becomes a problem. Yes. But anyway, you say I should give my final thing, or you, and you the
yeah, I'm waiting for you.
Oh, you the me who was waiting for me. But anyway, actually, you know, all of you, the comments you made were very much important. That's what we like. This whole idea of trading comments is very healthy. We need that to keep the national conversation going. Perhaps when one comes out and says something and we have something to say, it's probably a way of challenging you to maybe say more and all that. So we appreciate, especially when we are moving on to 174 years. In 26 years, Liberia should be 200 years. And even if we didn't move mountains and what have you, at least we move one or two boulders, we move one or two stones. And for that, we should be able to celebrate our dear country. Liberia is all we got. Some who are living in America, some who are living in Canada, some who are living in other developed countries, when it gets to a point when they lie in bed, they say, hey, God, where Liberia is? All this force and other kind of thing, let me go over there and drink Malay coconut water and just pass around. Liberia is all we got. Some of us getting to retirement, we will end it up, if God wills it, we will end it up in Liberia. So we want Liberia to be peaceful. We want people to do things to make our people live a little comfortably. And if they live comfortably, our little country will continue to go. Every country has problems, oh. Every country has problems. Don't mind people who say that America is the best and America is that. No, everybody has its own problems. Let's make sure to manage our own problems. Whether people go there and carry money and things like that, let us make sure that they don't get us drunk with money until we forget ourselves. Liberia is all we got. Thank you all very much for all the comments you've made. Jackie, that you're trouble there.
I echo Prof. Please make it very interactive. We encourage you to put your questions. I see my sister Bob Miller is here, and she and I, we argue all the time back and forth. She's taught me so much about history as well. So I hope one day that she can come on and we can talk some more. As Prof says, Liberia is all we have. You know, we have to uplift our country.
Who can say something like that again? So late, President Tobo never did anything good for Liberians. Who said that again, my people? Dode Davis. Who said that? Every president did his or her own share, except that sometimes the share was not as huge as we wanted it to be. But who will be a leader and not what? And not have people talk about him or her. So Thomas did his own thing now.
Liberia needs to do what Ghana did. For a foreigner to own business, he or she should have a Liberian business partner, and that partner should have a higher percentage in the company. Yeah, okay. So Paliko Kona said those companies were already established by Americans before the Chinese bought the lion's shares in them. Which meager institutions Liberians have? Well, we're getting there. I mean, I agree with you. But whether it was established before they bought it, the fact is they own it now, and that's what we're talking about. So as Prof said, I really like the conversation. We should have a whole show devoted to who was the best president ever.
I won't be part of that. That best thing that we have to define what we mean by that best.
And then we will be very interactive, and we'll have a poll, and then we'll find out who was the best president ever. So you must be ready to justify your choice. But we want to thank you for joining us. We know Friday afternoons or Friday evenings, guys have place to go. But like we always say, you have to mask up, keep Liberians and Liberia in prayers. You know, so our country can be safe. On Sunday we'll be here at 4:00. The 26th is on Monday, but on Sunday we'll be here for a celebratory event. We have a contest. What does Liberia mean to me?
Yes.
So we're going to be reading some of the essays. We have videos of people from back home who are going to tell you what Liberia means to them. We're going to have our own Dr. K. Moses Nagbe doing our Liberia 26 reflections on Liberia, and then he's going to explain what Liberia means to him. So please join us. Join us. Be ready to celebrate Liberia and all things Liberia. We ask you to join us then. You know, and so we wish you a good night. And as you go on, you can walk a little straighter to know that Liberia and Liberians, we are very proud people, and we have something to be proud of. We wish you all the best. It's not too late. You can call in on Sunday also to talk about what Liberia means to you. So thank you. Be blessed this weekend. Stay safe and lift Liberia up.
Yes. Lifting up.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home.